What is going on, ADPI Nation? I am your host, Kevin Brenner, and you are listening to the latest and greatest episode of the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast. Today's guest is all about wealth, all about strategy, but really we're going to focus on those three little letters that a lot of people are familiar with. A lot of the thousands of listeners of this podcast are familiar with. Tango Sierra Papa, TSP. What do you do with it? What can you do with it? How can you make it grow faster? What are your options out there? Our guest today, Dave Wolcott, is a Marine veteran, but beyond that, he did a lot of financial planning on Wall Street. He's since moved to Florida, but he's been building his holistic wealth approach, and he even wrote the book, The Wholistic Wealth Strategy, where he's been advising clients, and now he's raising money, and he's doing some really cool real estate projects, and it goes on and on and on. But Dave is really here to talk to us about some different options for us, whether you're transitioning out of the military, whether you're staying in and you're going to retire, whether you're maybe looking at some sort of separation retirement in the next, I don't know, 2-3 years. What can you do to prepare yourself now financially to lessen that turbulence that everyone always talks about, which is true, by the way. It does exist. Transitioning out of the military is not easy, but if you're prepared, it's a whole heck of a lot easier. So Dave Wolcott, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Kevin, really grateful to be here and connect with all those other veterans and also active duty folks out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us being military, and you're a military guy as well, kind of the way it works. Like we go to work, we do the mission, and we get a certain amount of benefits, and we get our pay, and then they're like, oh yeah, here, throw in some money in the TSP, and then towards the end of my military time, they would talk about this blended retirement system, and you can do this, and we're going to match this, and it was all this thing, and click this button to start here, or you can do the traditional. At the end of the day, if you're not a finance guy or gal, it gets really confusing really, really quick. And a lot of people just go into set it and forget it mode. And they say, let's throw it in the G fund. Let's see what it does. And then you have some people, manipulating. I'm going to put some here, some here. I'm going to try to play the market. But at the end of the day, with your TSP, you only got like 5 options to put it in. It's certainly not a self-directed IRA. It's not like you can do anything you want with it. But ultimately, before we get to that conversation, I want to learn more about kind of your military background and really what drove you to financial planning and that world and getting into Wall Street. So let's talk about your military history and that transition out into the finance world.
Yeah, sure, Kevin. So, look, I was raised in a middle class family in Connecticut, and I felt like the biggest challenge that I could do in my life would be to serve my country, join the Marine Corps, work with some amazing people. And so went down that path and did the ROTC program at George Washington University, got my commissioning there, and then went in as an infantry officer. I was stationed in Lejeune after that, and then I transitioned into 6th Marines reconnaissance, which was an awesome time. I was in the early 90s. We actually went in after Black Hawk Down happened. My little 2 minutes of fame was, when we were leaving Somalia and doing the full tactical withdrawal. I was an infantry commander at the time. So that was a amazing experience and really got to work with some just, top-notch people, travel the world, and things that, you learn in the military that they don't really teach you anywhere else in the world, right? Things such as leadership, teamwork, and integrity, which are such important skills no matter, what you do in life. So after I transitioned from the Marine Corps, I got into the tech industry and corporate America and just, was trying to figure out what am I going to do in life after serving. And I was really frustrated very quickly, Kevin, after losing that sense of mission, that sense of purpose that drives us all so much, and working for a really big cause. And in corporate America, I just didn't experience that. People would kind of, knife each other in the back, right, just to move ahead, or it was all about quarterly numbers, things like that. And then at the same time, my wife and I started building a family. We had an 18-month-old running around, driving us crazy. We couldn't figure that out. And on October 24th, 2000, we literally hit the baby lottery and had triplets, right?
Whoa.
So yeah, exactly. Right. So if you have any kids out there, you can certainly appreciate that, we literally quadrupled the size of our family like overnight. And so the first thing, I did, right, Kevin, was, I went to see my financial planner because I just, realized the goalposts got moved so much further down the field. So how am I going to be able to provide for financial security, for my family? And they just kept telling me the same thing, which is just put your money in the market, max out your 401ks. For your kids, you can do 529 plans,
Mhm.
for college and everything. And I realized that, the top 1% are not building their wealth, just hoping as a strategy and putting your money into the Wall Street casino. Right. So this kind of launched me on this obsessive journey to figure out, how are the top 1% really building their wealth? How can I create a blueprint out of this? And then, so, kind of fast forward 20 years, and I had the opportunity to, start investing in all kinds of different asset classes, everything from oil and gas to raw land to, commercial, to retail, all these different asset classes. And then I also, if listeners out there haven't read Cash Flow Quadrant by
Mhm.
Kiyosaki, I highly recommend it. I also moved over onto the B side of his quadrant, which is being a business owner, and also an investor. But as a business owner, I learned a lot about taxes as well as, other things, and trying to create capital in my economy. And so, I created this book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, to really share with others, all of my learning experiences over those 20 years, and how you can put together really a systematic approach, for building, what I would call is, real legacy wealth.
Yeah, yeah. There's God. There's so much to unpack there, and just we get the same advice. As far as just and I talked about at the top of the show, like you were mentioning. Oh, well, what do they say? They say put it in here, put it in the 529, but let the market do its thing, and just let the money max out your IRAs. Well, it's the same thing in the military. They're just like, yeah, just put it in the TSP. You're gonna be fine. Like, and you even get the emails from Thrift Savings Plan, and they're like, oh, you have the X amount of matching and do this, and just set it and forget it, and let it do its thing. But you mentioned hope is not a strategy, and I I have this quote from my father that I'm sure he got from his father, but I'll give the PG-13 version on the podcast here. But he said, well, people say hope is not a strategy, and he always say, well, you can piss in one hand and hope in the other, and guess which one you're going to have more of. and, and he said, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of anytime I mention hope to him, he's like, okay, well, get off your butt and go and do something, and really shape your future, right?
Yeah.
So um, with and then talking about the triplets and quadrupling your family, holy smokes, you did hit the baby lottery there. So for our listeners out there, let's kind of break into this the book that you wrote, the Holistic Wealth Strategy, and talk about, like, okay, put on your financial advisor hat for a minute, Dave, and talk to us about, you know, uh, let's take a couple scenarios. We got scenario number one is going to be like your standard E4 to E6. They've been in for a couple years. Maybe they're looking at a reenlistment bonus. Maybe they're deciding, hey, should I stay in? Should I get out? What can they be doing to prepare for their financial future? And let's say they're like 20, I don't know, 22 to 26 years old, something like that.
Yeah, so I'd probably give it this context, Kevin, right? The entire wealth strategy is really a framework, right? And it's flexible enough no matter where you are in life. So even if you've transitioned out of the service, 10 years and you're building a portfolio, or you're just starting, right? It gives you some ways to think about it. And it's all underpinned, number one, by a vision statement, right? If you don't have a target, you're going to miss every time. So starting to get clear on what is that future you want for yourself and your spouse or your family. We live in such a reactive, world. And I remember, obviously being in the service, so many days you're just working, night and day, tirelessly and everything. And it's hard to come up with some time to really think about your future. But I think once you get clarity on where it is that you're heading, everything else can kind of fall into place. Right. So, we start this by creating that vision statement, getting clarity over that. And then we move into the first phase, which is actually all about mindset, right?
Mm.
You want to be having a growth mindset. You want to be understanding that there could be new opportunities you didn't even know existed. So constantly be learning, right, about the different things that are available to you. What goals are you setting that are supporting your vision statement? What habits do you have, right, that are supporting those goals? Are they actually taking you closer to your goals? Or are they taking you further away from your goals? And then also conquering some of those limiting beliefs, right, based on how we were brought up, right, in our family or maybe the environment or certain things. We have lots of limiting beliefs that say, might give you some kind of predisposition. So getting a handle on those and really changing that mindset to have a growth oriented mindset and always be learning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and man, all of that, the phases 1 and 2, they completely remind me of Vivid Vision, Cameron Herold's book
Yeah.
about how to create that vision statement and get so granular when you're talking about how things smell, how things taste. Like you're literally creating the vision statement and then you're working backwards. And that's kind of like the first step in your wealth strategy is you're creating that vision statement and then you're supplementing that vision with education and learning. And guys, there's so many. I mean, obviously you're listening to this podcast right now, so you're into podcasts. This is one podcast, and I am over the moon that you're taking your time to listen to me ramble on about whatever it is I'm rambling on that day. But there's so many other podcasts, there's so many other audiobooks, there's so many other book like there's so many resources out there that people in past generations never even had. Like think about Dave, like back in the 40s or 50s or even the 60s, like if a family member or a close friend didn't tell you about a certain wealth strategy, or an advisor of some sort didn't tell you, you literally had no idea. Like the information just didn't exist.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Kevin, 100%. I mean, I started this, in the late '90s before, the internet was big. Podcasts weren't even really a thing. There weren't, YouTube videos or all these resources that were available to people. I mean, Kiyosaki's books didn't even come out until '99, right? And those were really revolutionary, right?
yeah.
But if you think about the fact that you can read someone's book and it's like a lifetime of lessons, and you can in 200 pages get all of that insight, right, and maybe change the trajectory of your future. It's really massive. And to make this really actionable, because I love to give the audience things that they can take action on. So a real simple way to kind of think about a vision, if you don't have one right now, is just to say, if you had $1 billion today, what would you be doing? Where would you be? And who would you be with?
Mm. Let's say that again. If you had $1 billion today, what would
Yeah,
you be doing? Where would you be? And most importantly, I think, who would you be with?
correct.
So think about that, listeners, and really take a moment to self reflect on here. If you're driving, keep your eyes on the road. If you're at the gym, maybe pause for a set and really take a moment to dwell on this, because if you can figure that out, and you don't have to figure it out exactly, but that is a starting point to work backwards from, and
Right.
that's the
And
power.
yeah, and when I transitioned out of the military, right, it's so hard for us, right? We're
Mhm.
going into this whole new world that's just completely a parallel universe, to the one that we were in. And getting clarity is really, really challenging. But I can tell you that if you actually create that vision statement and you know where you're going, where it is that you're headed, it's like when you go on a road trip, right? And the first thing you do is you type in the GPS. You're going to type in your coordinates and know where you're going. Well, the more you can get clarity on that, that's really going to drive these decisions for you. And I've had so many friends that, they go from career to career to career, right? They never figure it out, right? But if you get clarity on that and understand where you're going, right, it's going to be able to drive you, and you can keep making that, success towards your vision. And furthermore, right, if you really unpack this and really understand what wealth truly is, wealth is actually all about creating freedom in your life, right? It's about freedom of time to spend time how you want to. It's around freedom of money to be able to create those experiences and have the oxygen, you need in life to be able to do that. It's also freedom of relationship, right? To choose who it is that you want to spend your time with, right? You're a product of the 5 people that you spend your time with. And it's also freedom of purpose, right? Waking up every day and being fascinated and motivated with the work that you're contributing, right? Because in that scenario, you don't need to retire, right? You love what you're doing so much, and you're creating impact and you're fulfilling your goals, that you have awesome purpose.
Yeah, and that's something I'd like to really really foot stomp, because as you know and as I know, when leaving the military, like we have the mission, right? And what happens when you leave and the mission's no longer there, and you try to supplement that with going into corporate America, but like you described earlier, it's kind of backstabby. It's about quarterly numbers. It's about this. It's about that. It's not. No one has the same core values, or not no one. A lot of people don't, and they don't understand what it means to serve in a capacity that's bigger than yourself. So having that purpose and finding that purpose is so important. So when we're going back to those 3 questions, if I had $1 billion, or if you had $1 billion, what would you do? Where would you be? And who would you be with? I would challenge you to add one more question to that, listeners, and that is, who do you want to serve? Who are you serving? Like, because if you can answer that question, that is going to inevitably shape your purpose, because you're serving a segment of an audience of someone, or something, and they're propelling you forward. And the sooner you realize that it takes a team to really create a massive impact in the world, then the sooner you'll find your purpose, and the happier you will be. I can promise you that. Dave, this is some really, really cool conversation. So we talked about, in your holistic wealth strategy, we talked about kind of 2 pillars. We talked about, there was the mindset piece, which was the second one, and then the first one being the vision piece. What's next after vision and mindset?
Yeah, so a simple way to understand the second phase is really to think about this equation, Kevin. It's that your net worth equals your financial IQ plus your mindset IQ plus your physical capital plus your relationship capital,
Oh
right?
man.
So if you break that down, instead of just thinking about, building wealth based on a particular yield, right? You can do better by understanding, alternative assets, or, just think there's so many military folks out here who've gotten into real estate, right? From your show and everything. They've started investing and significantly built wealth, very quickly. Right. But that was all because they're taking time to listen to this podcast, educate themselves and learn that there's other investment vehicles besides, just getting into, investing in your TSP, or into, what Wall Street is really prescribing. So getting smarter on what else is actually available. We also talked about the mindset being absolutely key to your growth mindset. And just think about it for a second. What's the difference between someone like Elon Musk, right, who's contemplating going to Mars and trying to solve that problem, with maybe someone that you went to high school with, that has the same circle of friends, is in the same job, is in the same town, right? They haven't really made those advancements, right? And it's all about your mindset. And then also, coming from our military backgrounds, and yes, okay, I was in the Marine Corps, but health is just so important, right? You could have all of the wealth in the world, but if you don't have your health, right, it's completely meaningless. So, especially as we transition and things like that, making health like a key focus is absolutely critical, right? That's going to take you to your goals faster. Versus some people don't focus on it. It's detracting from your goals. And then the last piece being relationships, how important relationship capital is. You could be one relationship away from 10 times your wealth, tomorrow, right? So what are you doing to advance those relationships, meet new people, right? And create new experiences and things like that. Jim Rohn always says that you're a product of the 5 people that you spend your time with.
Mm-hmm.
So, are those people getting you closer?
Yeah. So let's break that down again. So what were those? The give me the
So
equation one more time.
your net worth is equal to your financial IQ
Financial
plus
IQ.
your mindset IQ
Mm-hmm.
plus your physical capital, your health,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
plus your relationship capital.
So I love this. I think so. When we talk about filling your cup and what fills your cup and what takes away from your cup, and you've probably heard, listeners, you probably heard me talk about it or someone else talk about it in books and things like that. It's not anything that I made up, but the idea of like, hey, do things that fill your cup and don't do things that don't fill your cup, especially in the introvert extrovert conversations, blah blah blah. But if we go and take Dave's equation here and we say, hey, this is your net worth, and you set aside 4 different cups and you make it a goal during the week, maybe assign one day, hey, today's going to be our mindset cup, and we're going to try and do our best to fill our mindset cup. And throughout the week, you're working out, so you're constantly filling your physical cup, right? And you're going through that process week after week, and then once a week you're going out to a networking event and you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and filling that relationship cup. Like doing these things inevitably will lead to success. And the people who Dave was referring to, who are just, in your hometown, and we all have them, they're just like high school buddies or acquaintances or something who just like never got out. They're doing the same thing, or they're doing the thing that their dad did. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they have succumbed to a life of mediocrity. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's not for you, then don't do that. Break out your 4 cups and start filling them up every day. And that's like Dave literally gave you the equation. So I love that, man. Man, this is super cool. So other, is that phase 3 or phase 4? I lost track of the phases of the wealth strategy.
That was this. Yeah, that was the second phase. So in the third phase, much like we know from the military, right? You want to create a team around you, right? And it is kind of interesting, right? Because we're also all, no matter what branch of service you're in, they want you to be like a jack of all trades, right? And having all these different specialties and different skill sets and everything, but as you kind of evolve and in the business world, and if you're an entrepreneur, it's all actually about shortcuts, right? And getting to your goals as fast as possible. So you want to plug in people that are specialists in certain areas, right? So as you start to create a team, and you create an infrastructure around your wealth. So, number one being tax strategy. Taxes are our number one biggest expense in life. No
100%.
matter what your job is, if you have a business, anything, right? So do you have a proactive tax strategy that can actually reduce your taxes, right? And a lot of the people, here who've understood real estate are figuring that out really quickly, right? And with real estate, I wish that someone had told me, Kevin, I mean, it's basically this simple, is that if you're a W-2 employee, you're going to be paying the most amount of taxes in your
Yeah.
life, either W-2 employee or self-employed. Now, if you're a business owner, you can pay 20% in taxes or less. And if you're an investor, you can actually pay 0 in taxes, right? If you're smart about your investing. So just think about if you could make a 10% tax savings, in your overall strategy, on top of your other investing, and then you start to compound that out over 20 years, it really gets significant. So you really want to focus on, tax strategy as a core part of your infrastructure. We also want to consider estate planning and asset protection, especially with those, of you getting into real estate and other types of assets. You better make sure you're protecting your wealth, not only multiplying your wealth, but you want to be able to protect it as well. And then we also support a strategy called infinite banking and help our clients with this, which is a really unique strategy that many haven't heard of, which is essentially using cash value whole life insurance policy, which is a store of liquidity. Your money can actually grow completely tax free. And what's cool is you can actually borrow against it to go invest in that next real estate property, or use it for your kids' college, or
Hmm.
basically anything you want. But you have access to that, which is really powerful, and it's compounding completely tax free. So a lot of really cool benefits around that in your infrastructure.
Yeah, it's funny. We recently we had a guest on the show talking about high value whole life cash insurance. God, I messed that up. High cash whole life insurance. There we go. Uh, and he was talking about, like the main difference being when you're your own bank. If you want to go and take a loan from your own, against the value of your whole life insurance policy, you can say you're the loan originator. So you can say, you know what, Kevin, I would really like to take a loan for this. And then you look on the other side of the desk, you know what? I like you. You're approved. Whereas when you go to a bank, you got to go through all these statements. And what did he say? The previous guest, Chris LaRue, is like, yeah, you got to give them like a gallon of blood and you got to give them like a million years of tax statements. And it's just a total bureaucratic pain in the butt. So if you
Yep.
can separate yourself and become your own bank, oh, by the way, while preserving your wealth and constantly making it grow, it's amazing. And it's one of the reasons why we years ago actually launched ADPI Insurance, which is that's the only product we do. We do it specifically for real estate investors, and we tailor the policies in a way that are extremely low commission, but high. You get access to like 80% or more of your cash value of your policy in like 1 to 3 years, which is incredible. And you can go and use that money and use it for real estate projects and thus grow your wealth much faster than simply putting it, I don't know, in your TSP. Which is a great segue, if I must pat myself on the back right now, to talk about the TSP, because it's something that we are kind of indoctrinated into, at least my year group being a 2013 year group in the Air Force. And that was like the first thing I remember in like ROTC, the officers out there coming out, oh yeah, put everything into the TSP. It's going to be great for you, blah, 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 all this stuff. Let's break it down, Dave. Like, first of all, what is actually the thrift savings plan in terms of financial vehicles? Like, what is it?
Yeah, Kevin, I'm really not the expert in terms of, TSPs and some of these plans. I can tell you that I'm actually, completely contrarian to any government sponsored qualified vehicle. And I can tell you why, right? I mean, I literally, raising 4 kids, I got to the end of 18 years of squirreling away money every month and hoping to be able to pay for college for my kids. And, the return ended up being about a 5.5%. I think I was using USAA's plan, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
and it was less than 6%. I had no control over the money. Also, you have to use the funds for college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had 2 guys not go to college, right? So then I was completely, lopsided, right? So that's just like one example, but essentially government sponsored qualified plans, whatever they are, whether it's a 401k,
Mm-hmm.
IRA, SEP, TSP, any of these things, the government is telling you basically when you can access your money, how much you can take out. And then the thing that we also don't really think about and give any credence to is the fact that you're going to be paying higher amount of taxes when you go to take out that money. So we all think it's great if we can kind of defer taxes, but you know I can't predict the future, Kevin, but the one thing I can be certain of is taxes are likely going to be higher in the future than they are today, right? So you want to understand that paying taxes on the seed rather than the harvest is much more beneficial to you, right? So, getting into tax efficient things like, the infinite banking or real estate, can significantly improve, your portfolio over time. And another thing, like, I mean, just to give like another example that's just, fascinating, right? Is I was such an advocate of, getting away from these plans that I sold my 401k about 10 years ago. And we've created a calculator, which folks will give you a link that you can actually download. But let's just go with this scenario, okay, to make it really simple. Is that if let's say you have 100 grand inside of, you pick your vehicle, okay,
Sure.
uh, you pay the 10% penalty to liquidate it early, and then you pay 35% taxes on it. So you now have net investable 55,000. You now invest that 55,000 into, say, multifamily syndication or some types of real estate, right, that can compound at 15-20% returns with no taxes. And then you compare that against if you had left that 100K alone, and then you're just growing, you're compounding it like a 7-8% return in the market. Well, after 20 years, that 55K can grow to almost 2 million, over 2 million at a 20% compounding rate. And after taxes, it's about 250K in your original government plan.
Wow. So
Pretty
comparing,
pretty mind blowing, right?
pretty mind blowing. Exactly. Pretty mind blowing is an understatement. Like, gosh, I mean, you talk about comparing these two things, and now obviously we're taking, we're taking a lot of assumptions here. Even on the, taking the $55,000 out, which, I think those penalties are super scary for a lot of people. They're like, God, I'm going to give up 45% of the value that I have in this thing just off the jump to go and put it in to go and get control over it. I mean, yeah, control is everything, guys. Control over your life, control in business is everything. And when you get to a certain level in business, some of the top business executives and entrepreneurs in the world will say, I don't even want to own the business. I just want to control it. I don't want equity. I just want control, you know? But like, yeah, so paying the piper to get control over this, and then putting it in different, different, whether it's syndications, whether it's, you want to be in on ADPI Capital and getting involved in LP deals like that, or you want to go and put it into some flip projects, or you want to go get some short-term rental, whatever the case may be. I mean, just anecdotally, I, using that example, Dave, my first real estate deal closed in 2018, sold it in 2022, and or no, 2023. Sorry, January of this year, I sold it. Quadplex in Savannah, Georgia. Listeners know this story, and I was all in on the deal because I used my VA. All in on the deal, I was like $65,000 into it. So let's say, for example, it's 55 grand, and I did the same scenario that you did, that you just talked about. You pull the money out and you put 55 grand, and that's what you rehabbed a quadplex with that, and you sold it. Guys, I did like, I bought it for 350 and sold it for eight and change, like that's crazy, crazy, crazy money. It turned out, I think, to be like a 45% return on investment on that. Now, I understand all the investments are different, but when you compare of just leaving that money sit in that government sponsored program over the amount of time, and time being the critical factor here, like it's not, I say compare, it's not even a comparison. It's like you're getting gypped and you're doing it to yourself. And the only reason we do these things is because the wool's been pulled over our eyes for so many years, and it's that the government wants us to do, and it's the quote unquote safe thing to do. But it's not necessarily as safe as it is because you don't have any control over it. If you were educated in a space and you really wanted to put your money into it, shouldn't you be able to, like, it's your money? what's it like the JG Wentworth guy? He's like, it's my money and I want it now. It's like kind of like that. Like you got to take control of your money. And when you take control of that and you control your finances, it's magical what can happen. So Dave, that's a super interesting kind of point that you made. And we're going to broach the subject here of this asset reallocation, which is something that you talk about a lot. Let's dig into that facet a little bit more and how people can go and look at the assets that they have, whether it is a retirement plan, whether it is a house, whether it is a car, a motorcycle, a boat, or whatever their assets are. What can they do to make those assets actually work for them?
Yeah, there can be a lot of low hanging fruit here, Kevin. Over 90% of Americans basically have their, net worth tied up in two places. It's in these government sponsored qualified plans. And number two, it's locked up in trapped equity in their primary residence, right? So the rate of return on equity in your house is zero,
Correct.
right? You are only making money on that when you actually sell your house, right? So it can be a really good opportunity to create more velocity, with the existing assets that you do have. Can you redeploy those, in a certain way? So let's take, for instance, taking out a home equity line of credit. And again, let me just give the caveat that, this isn't financial advice. We're just giving you my opinion on this show. But one example could be, you take out a line of credit on your house if you have some equity. Let's say you've got 100K of equity in there, and you take that out to something that's comfortable for you, and then you reposition that into some real estate or other opportunity that's now paying you a 15% return, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the arbitrage on that capital, you've actually just, kind of doubled that money. And that was really lazy capital that you had doing nothing in your house. Now you're making another, 8% return on that. Plus, thinking again, because this is an end to end strategy, you've now created more mortgage interest deduction that you can reduce your taxes by doing that. And then you can also use that investment to, let's say, in the real estate investment or whatever investment you pick, and then you can use the cash flow from that to pay the debt service, right?
Yeah.
So you're really just making a much more efficiency, out of your existing assets by being smarter about it.
Yeah, David, uh, I'll be honest with you here. What really chaps my ass about the whole HELOC thing is when you look at, if you ever look at advertising from like banks or people who are offering HELOCs, they never talk about taking that money out and putting it into another investment. They're always like, you can do a home improvement project. You can go on vacation. You can do you can buy this doodad or do that liability or do this. And when I look at that, I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with society? Because you can take that same money and do exactly what Dave said and like potentially double it in just as amount of time and take a positive arbitrage. So remember, a positive arbitrage is where, I do it with my short-term rentals, right? I rent from the landlord and then I sublet. So I rent for say $1,000 a month for a property, and then I sublet on Airbnb and get $100 a night. So for 30 nights, that's 3,000, and so 3,000 a month. So I'm taking a positive arbitrage on that. Same thing with the HELOC. You're taking the money out, that lazy cash, that lazy equity at, I don't know what HELOC rates are right now, but let's say 7%, which might be low. I don't know, but you got to pay interest on that, right? But then you're going and putting it into a project, a real estate project or whatever investment project that's returning 15%. All right, great. You just created 8% positive to you by just putting money to work. And that's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Creating that efficiency, in your existing platform is really key. And then, as you scale, the numbers just keep getting bigger, right? But what's really cool about like having this entire strategy is, things really start to snowball, right? You start to keep reducing your taxes. Now you've got more investable income that you can start putting in more projects. Your passive income keeps growing. You've got multiple passive income streams that are coming in. Your asset value is growing, right? So you get this really nice snowball effect, and then all of a sudden, you're getting so much closer to your vision.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting closer to your vision. And that is a really, really foot stompable, if that's a word. I know it's not, point that we're trying to make here, because every move that you make, think about, like a board game, right? And you're trying to get from your point A to point B at the end of at the end of the board. You're trying to get to that vision, and each move that you make gets you closer and closer and closer to that vision. But if you're not constantly reminding yourself about that vision, sometimes you can just get lost in the sauce, and you're just kind of making moves willy-nilly, and you think your vision is just, oh, I'm just going to make more money this year. But if it's not narrowed and focused and tied down with all the things that we talked about at the top of the show, then you might go get blown a little bit off course. It's very easy, especially in the world today that we live in, with a million distractions and everything's going on, and you got triplets at home running around, like Dave, which is obviously extremely unique. But and incredible, by the way. But the point I'm trying to make here is that keeping a hold of that vision and that vision statement, and look at it at least quarterly. Look at it quarterly to see where you are and what you can do to improve it. Now, I did promise folks at the top of the show that we're going to talk a little bit about the TSP here. And what I will share is the knowledge that I have figured out along the way with your TSP. So, guys, there's a couple ways that you can leverage your TSP. The one way is by taking a general purpose loan. Now, there's two loans that you can take against your TSP. One's a general purpose loan. Another one's a primary residence loan. So let's say, example time, let's say you had $100,000 in your TSP, right, for math's sake. What they will do, if you're still active duty, you're still a service member, or you're a federal employee and you're still like on the pay chart, you can take this general purpose loan, and the interest rate of that loan is the yield of the G fund. So right now, to date, it's like 3.625% interest. So compare that just in your head, and Dave's nodding, like Dave knows, like what Dave, what's a hard money loan rate right now for a real estate project? Give or
Hard
take.
money rate,
Probably
probably
like
12 to
12.
15%.
Yeah, 12 to 15%. So what if you can go and loan from your own money, your retirement that you've been contributing to regularly at a 3.625% interest rate? I think you can go and make that money work for you. And the general purpose loan, you can use the money for whatever you want. Typically, your loan to value is going to be about 50%. So if you got 100K in there, you can take about 50 grand out and go and put that money to work, and then you just repay it. And you repay it. And again, you have to be a federal service employee. You have to be, if you're separated like me and you're a veteran, it don't work. Can't do it. So but that's one option. So if you're active duty and you want to put that lazy money to work, you can do that. There are other options too, where you can go and convert your TSP, kind of what Dave was talking about, by pulling the money out and taking the penalties, right? So you can do that, right? That is an option. Or you can convert it to a more self-directed vehicle. You still got to pay some penalties, and you got to work it out. It's called an EQRP, and you can have a self-directed option and then go and invest that. But remember, all the things you invested in, just like any self-directed vehicle out there, goes back into the self-directed. So it can't go like self-directed IRA goes and invests in Flip, and then the Flip money comes back to Kevin, and then Kevin puts it back. No. There's a custodian involved. You gotta do the right things. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get done on the getting the self-directed things set up. But by doing that, you're able, again, the point is, put that lazy money to work. And if you're a veteran and you're no longer contributing to your TSP, and it's just like there in like the stasis, then you can really, you have an opportunity to go and make that work for you, whether you want to, take the penalties like Dave was talking about and just put it to work because it's not growing fast enough, which is fine, or whether you want to try and convert it to a special self-directed kind of situation, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of options for you, but inaction is, while it is an option, it is the least beneficial option when we're talking about these government-sponsored plans, because you got no control. You got low, you're not growing as fast as you could be, especially if you're listening to this podcast and you're educating yourself in real estate, and it just doesn't make sense. Time is our greatest commodity. Make the money work for you in the time that you have on earth so you can do the things that you want to do, live your vision, be where you want to be with the people that you love. That's it. That's life. That's finances. That's wealth. And I don't even write a book. Did I hit all the points, Dave, in your book right now?
Yeah, we're just at the last one, Kevin, which is really easy, and it's the fun one, right? It's all about taking action and actually
Yeah.
building massive passive income, right?
Yeah.
And that means, investing in some of these alternative assets, outside of what, Wall Street is doing. We're really bypassing Wall Street and investing directly in Main Street. And when you can start to create multiple streams of income in your portfolio, it starts to get pretty nice, right? Because you could all of a sudden maybe, have a career transition for 6 to 12 months, right? While you're thinking about the next thing, because you have passive income coming in, right? And you're not always worried about, living paycheck to paycheck. And the more you can kind of get yourself into this position, the world just becomes your oyster.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very well said. And that transition plan starts with preparation, and education. And in ADPI, we say our listeners had heard me say this ad nauseum, but the ADPI triad, right? Learn, network, take action. It's a completely iterative process. It's constantly going on. But if you can learn and you can network and you can take action, and you continue to do it over and over and over again, you're going to get closer to where you want to be, and living that vision. But if you try to, if you think that someone's going to do it for you, if you think that $1 million is just going to, like, you're going to pass go and $200 is going to fall in your lap, good luck. Like, I wish you the best of luck, but it ain't going to work like that. Like Dave said, you have to take action, whether that means one baby step. Maybe for a lot of listeners right now, listening to this podcast is their action step for the day. And that's okay. That's great. Like, that's awesome. I'd be honored to be your action step for the day. But maybe this podcast is routine for a lot of people, and they're also taking action in other ways, shapes, and forms. So take action, whatever that looks like for you, and you're going to be better off for it. And Dave, this has been incredible. I love talking to folks like you who have so much insight and knowledge about building financial independence. I want to say it the right way, but almost the non-conformative way, like, of what Wall Street wants you to do. Like you said, no, I'm going to do it this way and take control. And you found a ton of success doing it. So we're getting to that time where I got to take you to the bonus round. It's the same 4 questions we ask each and every guest. Are you ready, my friend?
Shoot.
All right. Question number 1, what book or software is really crushing it for you lately?
The latest book I'm reading is 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan.
Oh, is that his new one? Is that the new one?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
dude, is it good?
Yeah.
I got to get
It's
that one.
awesome. Yeah.
Oh, I
It's
love
exponential
Dan
thinking. Very good.
Yes. Yeah. I'm, what did I just read by Dan Sullivan? And Dan
Who
Sullivan.
Not How, maybe.
Yeah. Who Not How. But then the one after that is the one I just read, and I'm totally blanking on it, but it's with the same guy, Dan Sullivan, and
Ben Hardy.
and Dr. Ben Hardy. Yeah. Anyway, fantastic book. I'll think of the name and we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, I got to get that new one. 10X is Easier Than 2X. Also, guys, remember I mentioned Vivid Vision. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Fantastic book. Go and get that. And remember, when you go and you click these links in our show notes and you get these books, you're supporting the show. We don't really have like sponsors or anything on the show. So if you want to support the show, I kind of do it as a hobby, to be honest. Love talking to people like this. But if you're itching to support the show and you've been a long time listener and you want to learn something along the way, go ahead and get the books, click the link, get the books, and learn something. Question number 2 for you. Who's your biggest hero and why?
My biggest hero is actually Dan Sullivan. I think he's one of the greatest entrepreneurial thinkers, of our time. I've actually been a member of Strategic Coach, which is one of the elite entrepreneurial coaching groups in North America. And just, it's all about thinking about your thinking, right? And getting kind of, deeper on different strategies, different thinking tools to solve problems. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Dan's been running Strategic Coach now for, 20, 30 years, something like that. It's like a long time.
It's like 40, 50. This guy, he's 78, He has a goal to live to 156, and their business is, bigger and better than it's ever been. He's not stopping, and just amazingly insightful. So yeah, I highly recommend the books. And if you're an entrepreneur, check out their coaching program. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have a ton of his books, but I got to get this latest one. Question number 3 for you. What do you like to do for fun?
I cannot get exercise out of my blood. My blood is still green, even though it was many years ago. I was in the service, so I love to work out. I do a lot of cycling. I was doing triathlons for a while. I did Ironman and did some marathons and stuff, but now it's mostly cycling, so probably 150 miles a week, and I kind of race and train with a bunch of friends. So that's my fun time.
That is awesome. Awesome. I love cycling. And you're in Florida, right? So you got the nice flat. You can go and go and go. And hopefully they have some nice bike lanes for you and you're not fighting cars too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, it's actually safer than Northern Virginia because there are
Yeah.
there are bike lanes and people aren't trying to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. I got one of those one wheel things and I always try to take in the bike lane, but people don't care. Uh, 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 final question for you, Dave. You shared so much insight into your holistic wealth strategy. We covered all the phases, but for listeners coming into this podcast, maybe this is the first active duty passive income podcast they've ever listened to. Maybe they've been listening to me ramble on for years. What 3 nuggets of wisdom could you boil down to help folks get a hold and get control of their financial situation?
Yeah, so great question, Kevin. I think maybe a good way to summarize it is really just think about yourself as being your greatest asset. Okay, so anytime that you can invest in your health, in your relationships, in your mindset, right, in your education, all of these things have always yielded me at least a 10x, if not greater, result. Right, but we don't really think about it that way. In conventional schooling and things of that, we don't really learn it that way. But if you make that paradigm shift to understand that you're your biggest asset, I mean, think about it. LeBron James actually spends over $1.5 million a year just on himself, on his body and everything. I've spent, the 6 figures in terms of, masterminds, coaching, group work and all of that, and it's incredible where that can go. So I encourage people to think about yourselves in that way, right? And any type of investment you can make is well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely incredible, man. That's so cool. And I keep thinking about those 4 those cups that I kind of made that metaphor to. But the mindset, the relationships. What is it? The education, and I'm missing one. Um,
Time
yeah, yeah, and
and money.
maximizing your time. Yeah, um, figuring that out. Oh man, that is so powerful, and it gets you closer to your vision. And that's exactly where we all want to be, right? That's the whole point of dreaming and having those visions and getting there, right? It's the work that we put in every single day. So Dave Wolcott, thank you so much for coming on the show. For listeners who want to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do, how can they do that?
Yeah, the best place, Kevin, is you can go to our website, pantheoninvest.com/wealth hyphen strategy. We have links to the book, and then we also have a couple bonus items there, including that 401k calculator and some other cool things if you guys want to check that out. And I do want to give a shout out as well that all proceeds from the book are going to the fund.org, which cares. It's our charity that supports our nation's critically wounded, right, for all branches. So we have an awesome cause that we're trying
That's
to
awesome.
support in terms of reading the book. And then the other thing, you can also find us. We have our own podcast as well called Wealth Strategy: Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy.
Perfect, man, dude. Now I got everyone. Go ahead and pick up. We're gonna have links directly to Dave's book in the show notes. If you don't get any of the books that we've mentioned, buy Wholistic Wealth Strategies. I'm going to go pick up a copy. It's going to be my donation to the wounded warriors out there, and yeah, you're going to learn something. You know, if you've listened to anything so far that Dave's been talking about, it's been absolute gold. He's been dropping gems left and right in the finance world. So go and pick up the book, and I'm really curious to go and get involved in that calculator thing, because it sounds really really cool to go and figure out, like, hey, here are the assets that I have. Like, here's the value of assets that I have. How can I use that? And you'll find out, or at least what I've learned, Dave, and I'm sure you can echo this feeling. When the more assets you collect, like it becomes not stressful, but it becomes more top of mind for you to figure out, how can I make that work for me? Where if you rewind my personal clock 5-6 years before I started collecting assets, it was just like, the stressful thing in my life was like work, or, making sure that I'm not living paycheck to paycheck and saving and squirreling away money. But when you have a lot of money and have a lot of assets, it's like, oh man, how can what do I do with this? So figuring out what you have and then making a game plan to get to your vision, that calculator seems like it could be just an absolute slam dunk. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, thanks so much, man. Thanks for coming on the show. And man, we're going to have you on again to talk more about, I'm sure there's going to be another book that you're going to write coming out soon that we'll need to talk about, dude. It's been absolutely incredible.
Awesome, Kevin. No, really appreciate the time, and Semper Fi, everyone.
Thanks, man.